still very thin, but very, very stiff, so to speak. When you go at that, the jig bounces as well. So it's understanding your rod as well. And then there's the braid. So the braid can be a very thin, strong line, or can be a strong, thick line. So that makes sense. Doesn't make sense that one. But what I'm getting at is you can have a 14-pound braid like this fella here, which is extremely thin. Okay, I'll pass this around, and it enables you to cast jig heads, light jig heads a long way, and smaller plastics or bigger plastics, doesn't matter. Just pass it around like that. This is a X-braid line, very, very thin, 14 pound, great size for flatties. It's about the thickness of most braids in 6 pound, but it's 14 pound. So you could fish the flats with it with little tiny 1/8 or 1/6 jig heads and a small profile like a little paddle tail. And you can then go and fish in the bar area with it with the 1 ounce jig head. And because it's so thin, you don't get the current or the wind annoying you. And when you cast into the wind, sometimes you have to cast the wings. That's the way the tide's facing, the bow's facing. You don't get as many wind knots, you don't get as many bows in your line when you're jerking. It's a lot more direct, so a lot better to use than a braid. But that's up to you guys, what you want to use there. Leader, so like when it's a really quiet bite, you might want to use about 6 or 8, or 8 or 10 or 12 pound. I don't normally go under about 12, that's me. 8 might be a bit of a risk.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is if you're going to fish light leaders, which sometimes it does make a big difference having that light leader, but you got to run a bite leader. So you have to run like say 6 to 8 inches of heavier leader. So you go your braid to your light leader, so it's all sinking a bit more natural. There's less drag in the water. Your lure's working better, and then about that much of just heavier stuff. So 12 or 15, just so when they do swallow it, you don't get chafed off.
What are you attaching the leader to leader with?
I just use an all-bright.
An all-bright,
yeah, or a double uni or something like that. Yeah.
About 12 to 15 centimeters is plenty. It's just a bite trace, and it can save your backside. A lot of guys, like, it's really hard when you're fishing what's Russian roulette. You don't ever get a fish that size or a 90. Every cast is a different fish, right? And they'll all hang around the same area. So it depends on the cast. But if you get that big one on, a lot of time, especially if you're fishing in a comp, you might want to get more fish to the boat quicker, whatever it may be. You fish a bit tighter drag. But as soon as you hook up an 80 or 70 plus on a tight drag and they do a head shake, they just quickly, just even 15 pound, they'll just cut straight through it with their teeth, right? So you need to fish a lighter drag at that point. So when you hook the fish up straight away, you know it's a big one, first thing you do is back your drag back a little bit. So when they do a head shake, they actually pull the line off the reel and don't actually sit there and shake the line. Does that make sense? When you get fish close to the boat, it's even more important to have the drag a little bit loose. But at the same time, keeping that hook embedded into the fish. If you go too loose, then it'll fall off, which happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially those big ones, they come sometimes straight at the boat, or they come from the shallow straight into the deep, and then swimming at high speed, or just get rod tip up one fast, whatever. We'll talk about it a bit later, but getting back to the leader, so the most we ever use would be 20 pounds. Okay. Even fishing big flats with big hard bodies, or fishing the deep with big plastics for big flatties, 20 pounds here. Jace, do you use any heavy, mate?
Mostly 14 to 16.
14, 16, yeah. 15.
12 pound, just every day 12 pound, except when you go that little deeper.
Yeah. So you got that in your bag, so you guys will be sorted. Okay. So rods and reels we sort of spoke about. So we've got a few special ones I'll talk a bit later, but this is sort of like this is a Gary Howard rod, so quite a stiff graphite rod, quite high content graphite carbon, quite stiff but quite thin, as you know. Reel size is 3,000. So just a 2 to me is a good size reel, but it's a bit small. It's a great size for trolling. It's a great size for flicking close, but not for distance. And 20 pounds is a bit slower. So a 2 and a 2.5 and a 3 are pretty all the same size body, and handle. The gearing might be slightly different, but the rotor is bigger and the spool gets bigger. So as the spool gets bigger, you want to cast into the wind, whatever. It comes off bigger, so the cast is a bit further. It's easier to cast distance. When you want to get line back in quicker, it's coming in quicker because the biggest spool's coming in on. So it's not wanting so fast, trying to get some momentum happening. And that's about all I can tell you about that. But yeah, crisp rod's really important. That's a 2,500. So it looks like the same size reel, but it is slightly smaller in the head here. So just that part changes, the spool and the rotor gets a bit bigger as it goes to the 3. And that rod length there is, I think, 1/610.
Oh, they're both 7.
Oh, about 7.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 610. That's 7.
Okay, 610 and 7, so very close. It's a good length. 6/8 is a good length too, especially in the bit heavier stuff. So, any questions on the rods and reels?
Yeah, when you're going for a bit heavier of a rod, what size kilo would you be after?
So maybe a 4,000 size reel on a
Yep.
shorter 6'4", 6'6", or 6'8".
Yeah.
Sort of maybe a 4 to 9 kilo rod, or
Yep.
6 to 10 at the
You're
most.
using that when you throw up like big.
Yeah,
plastics as
correct,
well.
mate. Yeah, big hard bodies or bigger plastics that are sort of up to that size, or you're vertical dropping them, jigging them, like teabagging it. Because you might be using an ounce jig head or even an ounce and a half maybe in the pin area, and it's ripping. And if you've got too soft a tip, that does a lot of that, not that, if that makes sense. So you need to have that big heavier rod.
Cool.
Yeah, and a bit more power. Because you get a lot of releases stuff as bycatch, so it's as well.
The other thing is when you're using a lot of bigger plastics, generally it's a bigger jig head, the hook's quite a lot thicker.
Yeah.
So flatties are quite bony on that upper section of the jaw. It's all just bone, so you've got to get through that. So with that stiffer rod, it enables you to actually get that hook through that bone. If you're using a real soft rod, you'll find that you might have a really good action, and you get lots of bites, and you get the fish halfway in, and they just fall off. Or you get them beside the boat, and they open their mouth, it's like the lure just falls out of their mouth all the time. It's just because you're not getting that hook in them. So that little bit stiffer rod, as Dougie was saying before, when you move, A, your lure moves, but B, if a flattie's on the end of it or grabs it halfway through that jig, the hook's just going to go straight through, which is really what you want. You know?
The one good thing we're lucky about is I notice when I catch flatties that most of the time the mouths are shut. They seem to clamp down on the bait and don't want to let go of it. So it's only at the point when it gets a bit of slack and it might open its mouth up, that it falls out, which could be right next to the boat at the net sometimes, which is frustrating. Yeah. Okay, so, and then we'll talk about vibing in a moment, but similar rods for vibing as well, okay? So, everyone's cool with the line, the braid, and the rods and reels? Yeah, we're good. Okay, then we're going to go to the plastics. This is the hard part because it's endless, right? It is endless. But to me, the most important, we won't go to vibes, let's do plastics. The most important thing is to have probably 2 or 3 different types of plastics in your kit. And I don't care if you just have one of each, but you just need to have the different types. So 1 would incorporate a prawn type body. 2 would be a jerk shad, which Jace will talk about as well. So he's going to talk about prawns. 3 would be a shad tail. And 4 would probably be probably like a little bit different to a jerk shad, a bit more fatter style, like a S tackle. I use a lot of those S tackles you see it, I talk about every week. That would be the ones too. Pass these around, these things just actually kick butt. There's 2 sizes in it. Oh, there's a small one again, but that's the 2 sizes I use, and those 2 colours I love. But they're like a jerk shad, but a fatter profile, so, and they float. So on the bottom, the head pulls it down, the tail sits up like that in the current, so it's very natural. And when you jerk it, it straight away comes up, so the yellow strikes on the lift, but obviously more on the fall. But you dance it, you don't lift it too high, you dance it like it's, and cast it up current. So I'll just go run through as well, how to action for every different type of minnow. So that type of thing that you're working maybe up to a metre off the bottom at the most, even in deep water, and you cast it up current and you're hopping it down the bottom like it's an injured fish, hitting the bottom and kicks back up again. And not much action, just a little bit of action, okay? I will sometimes lift it up and then pop it on the bottom like that for about 3 or 4 goes before I drop it back down again. And then sit and wait, and then even drag it a bit, then lift it again. So it's a very timid action on that type of jerk shad. Different to maybe Jace's jerk shad action a bit later. And they're a bit different shaped jerk shad as well. Stewie, prawns, mate?
Yeah, so prawns are one of those things that they work 98% of the time, but there'll be a bit of the time where it just doesn't work. I don't know why, but they just don't eat it. They're quite a good thing to work when there's not a lot of bait in the area. So you might pull up to a spot and be fishing a drain where all that water's coming off of a flat, and you might look in the water, and you might have been there yesterday and there's heaps of little herring and things like that there. If you use a prawn in that type of instance, you'll probably catch a few, but you won't catch a heap. You need to use like more of a shad pattern. It might be it a jerk shad or a paddle tail or that type of thing, because you're imitating bait. There's a little bait fish there, and that's what you're trying to make your lure look like. If you rock up there the next day and there's nothing there and it's still flowing off the weed bed the same as it did the day before, that's generally when I use a prawn. So there's always prawns and yabbies and that type of stuff hanging around the weed, and flatties, when they're not honed in, eating that active bait, all those little fish zipping around, they'll just eat prawns. So quite often when there has been a bit of a tougher bite, we might keep a few fish every now and then, you clean them, and they've just got heaps of little prawns, like 3 to 4 inches type of thing in their guts, you know. And then the days where there's heaps of bait fish visible, you see heaps of little hardy heads and little silver biddies and that type of thing. So I think it's quite important when you pull up to a spot to look and see what bait's in the water before you just chuck on your favourite soft plastic and throw it. So pull up to a spot, don't see much bait, tie on a prawn. Look, natural stuff's always pretty good. I like more natural colours, like that type of thing. The little irukandji stuff's been working really, really well. A, they're quite durable. They're made out of that strong TPE type stretchy stuff. But B, they just look really natural. So I can throw something like that out, real light jig head, and just crawl it along the bottom.
Actually doing Stu. I'll get to the action. I'll go back to the other minute in a minute.
So I don't move a prawn too much, because prawns don't move too much. They might move really fast when they're scared, but a prawn's not always scared. So I'll throw it out into a drain or into flowing water, that type of thing, or up current. Biggest thing is you need to bring it back with the current. They're a soft plastic that you can't really work too fast because they've got a lot of drag. They've got legs hanging off them, they've got the big tail on the back. So if you try to work something like that against the tide, it's very hard for it to sink. It'll always blow up, and it'll be like you're drifting offshore and your lines are way out the back. You don't have much contact with them. They're doing their own thing. So I'll throw it up current or into current, let it hit the bottom, and I'll just slowly wind it for maybe 1 or 2 turns, and then I'll just flick the slack a little bit and then just let it ease back down on the bottom. I'll slowly wind it a bit, flick it a bit, and just let it ease back to the bottom. So a lot of the times when prawns actually sink, they glide as well. So just because they do have that big flat tail at the back on 99% of prawn soft plastics, that enables them to glide a little bit. So it's pretty natural. You see some guys and they're like, oh, well, when I see a prawn getting chased by a fish, it's flicking really fast. A, it's going backwards. So you don't really rig too many prawns backwards. There's a couple that are designed for it, but generally you rig it forward ways. And when they swim forwards, they can be pretty quick, but they don't have a lot of flicking and erraticness. They just kind of cruise around. So I try to make it look like what it's supposed to look like naturally. Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll rig them up as well and pass that around. You can see how it's rigged, okay? But yeah, so you fish a lot of the weed edges as well, where it goes into drops down.
Yeah.
So in prawns, there's a lot of different types. So I do slightly different to Stewie. I'm an old gulp prawn guy. Like this style of thing here, I love 3-inch prawns and 4-inch prawns, or shrimp they call them. And we haven't talked about scents yet, we will a bit later, but they are pretty scented, so the gulp is its own smell, very weird vinaigrette type smell. These are biodegradable as well. They're not made of rubber, they're made of food starch, okay? But they just work, as Chase will know. He'll tell you the same thing. Chase, they work pretty good. Stewie knows they work as well. The old original shrimp now comes in really good colours as well, and they come in all different sizes. So at the start of the season, we might start using something really small like that, which is sort of June, July, a 2-inch shrimp. Around now, we're using a 3-inch shrimp or a 4-inch shrimp. Okay, so that's its bigger brother. I'll pass those couple around, and then you got the real big one, which is a 4 or 5-inch shrimp, the bigger sizes. So these bigger ones, we're using these in places like the Seaway, or along Kalinga Bank and places like that, and casting it right up onto the edge. You're not going to get much of a bite once it goes down over the edge. It's going to be right on that shallow part. So for those of you who don't know, when you're fishing Seaway or fishing at the jumping pin area, and you've got a little shelf on the high tide, it might only be this deep. That's where the little waves break, and then it'll only be maybe a metre or 2 metres wide, and then it'll drop down like 2 metres or a metre and a half into the first ledge. Then it'll go down again a bit deeper, not further out. And the big flatties for that sort of 1 hour periods will sit right up on that this much water, and they're the ones you cast to. And as soon as you do the first twitch, or you feel tink before it even hits the bottom, and they're just sitting there buried. But as soon as it comes past, they just grab it, and it's generally a 60 plus size fish at that for this type of fishing. And Stewart's Way also works very good for that too as well. Yeah, but I like using the gulp style. They're really good. I find, as Stewie says before, where they flick away. I like to do that sort of style in the deeper waters. So there's a different scenario now. So I'll use it when I'm drifting, say, Tipples Channel, where it's like 3 to 5 metres deep or 6 metres deep, even 7 metres deep. And I'll cast it up current. And you got to understand wind and current. It's really important for you to understand. So if you have a current that's boring halfway in tide, so it's ripping in, and if you had no wind, you're going to be drifting at about 2 knots with the current. But in that scenario, you're casting nearly just slightly up ahead of the boat, not much, and you're hopping it back with you because it'll stay with you most of the time and come back in flat to you. So casting actually probably on about the current's coming this way. I'll probably cast it at that angle if I had no wind. If I've got a wind that's blowing the same way as the current goes, I might be doing 3 knots. That case, I'll actually pivot around and cast slightly down current. Because by the time I hop it back, it's going to be coming back flat with me. But if I've got a wind against current, so that means you're stalling, the boat's not actually doing much, but the current's ripping. So in that case, you've got to cast nearly vertical straight up into the current as far as you can. And the boat won't move much at all, but you'll hop the lure back all the way back to the boat. And you look at where you're drifting and look on your GPS, and you've hardly moved anywhere down current. Does that make sense? So you need to understand the drift with what way the wind's blowing with the current. It's really important to get that right. If you make a mistake and the current's stronger than what you thought it was, and you cast on that angle, and by the time you get even halfway back, it's already past the boat, just wind it in, because you're never going to get to the bottom. You're never going to get a flathead that way. It's very rare. So then next cast, you have to do a bit more angle that way. Does that make sense? So get that right. It's really important. Add to that, Stu? No, that's right. After a couple.
Question.
Yes.
So why do you start with the smaller lure earlier in the season for a couple of months and then go to a bigger one?
It's to do with the bait rand. So the bait's normally very small, a lot of white bait. And white bait now is a bit bigger, but at the start it's very small. Yeah, and I just seem to be feeding on that sort of profile. Tail is the greatest thing to catch as a bycatch when you're flathead fishing, because you see straight away what they spit out. So flatties don't always spit it out. Tail will do. So when they shake their head on the deck and all this white bait pop out, and they're all that size, and that's the sort of size you might start using. And the tiny, you'll obviously switch down, because that's what the flatties feed on too.
So the best season's winter, is it?
It is, mate. Now's the peak. So we probably get more numbers in July, August, early August, but now we get more size, consistency.
Yeah.
So you might get a couple of 80s, and a big day out if you're real good fishers, you might get a 70 and an 80, and 30 or 40 other fish that are in that sort of 35 to 50 size in, say, July or August, early August. But now you go out, you might get 30 or 25 fish, but you'll probably get a few 60s, a couple of 70s, maybe an 80 or a 90 if you're lucky. So more consistency and bigger fish. Yeah, well, we fished that flatty comp the last Wilson round 2 weeks ago. And we got 62 fish, I think, for the day. And
How many are you on the boat?
3. There was 3 the day. Yeah, and 50 were over 40 centimetres. So, yeah. And we actually spent a lot of time up on the flats casting for big fish, so that wasn't all good fishing time, by the way. And we never got many big fish. Anyway.
Third time of the day.
Third time of the day, they bite all day. But if you're lucky to get to me, I love a high, tomorrow's tide is perfect. So if you get high tide at 6:30 in the morning, which is tomorrow, or 6 o'clock, you fish right up on the edge of those banks like I'm talking about, close to the Seaway or close to Jumping Pin Bar, and then once the tide starts to run out for the first hour before it gets too strong, do the same thing. They might slide off the ledge into the next ledge, which is a couple of metres deep. And then once it starts ripping hard, you've really got to go then up the back blocks and start to find where the banks are starting to drain. So the sandbanks, say back at Crab Island up to Sovereign Island, if you're in this area 10, and where the sandbanks start to come off. I think these little drains come out on the edge of the sandbank. Not only be tiny, as wide as this. Some might be quite deep and you could drive the boat in nearly, but most of them are quite small. But they'll come off the flats, they'll sit in that little puddle in there, then they'll come off that into the deeper water. And they're generally at that entrance, stacked up. And they'll generally hang there. They might go for a swim around, a bit of bait around and down the edges, look for pelicans. And then once the tide starts to come back in again, they'll then go, they'll be at that entrance again, ready to go back up on the flat and feed again. So you get like a all-day window if you know what to look for. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then you get bite time as well. Moonrise. First, the running tide's a great time. Yeah. But they'll bite. If you can work out a spot. So when you get really competitive in Flathead Classic, you sort of know a spot. You know, there's 2 or 3 spots depending on what way the wind's blowing. Like every 20 minutes to half hour of the tide of the day, where to be at. Yeah, so you're zooming all over the joint. Get him here, get him there, get him there. Just chip away at it. Yeah.
When you're fishing a spot and you're sort of getting fish after fish after fish, but then the current's starting to pick up a bit and they just seem to shut down.
They will.
Is that more they've shut down just at that point, or because the current's moving, your plastic isn't moving the same way it was 15, 20 minutes ago?
Good question. Probably a bit of both, but probably that they've either gone up onto the bankment, and once they spread out a bit, it's hard to find them.
Yep.
So in that situation, if you can get your boat up on the bank, you can trawl around with the shallow diving lures, or cast hard bodies around, or go getting ready for the high tide on the edges, like I was saying earlier. Yeah, and those edges don't necessarily mean the Seaway or jumping pin. We work the edges right around the back of Short and right up to nearly Cabby Street Point. You know, same edges. You just got to find those little sand patches.
Yeah, you go on canals and that, but they
Yes.
get up there at all.
Yeah, they do. Not that good casting, mate. More trawling little hard bodies
Yeah, okay.
in canals. You need to. There's a couple of weed patches at the back of Runway Bay canals near the. There's a bunch of high rise opposite Harbour Town here. There's a bit of weed on that edge there. You've got to get in there casting. That's the only place I've ever called casting actually. Oh no, I've called them back at Runway Bay Shopping Centre casting as well. But generally speaking, it's trawling hard bodies. Yeah, kick at the bottom. Yeah, next seminar. So get back to the.
Sorry, is
Sorry.
majority of casting then while you're drifting, or would
Yeah.
you sort of spot lock or find a
Yeah.
spot, or just it's drifting?
Good question again.
Yeah.
So spot lock. Look, we like to, if we're going to use electric, we like to, especially Stewie, you tell me you'd like to
I like
go
to
into
work
the current,
into the tide.
into the tide.
Yeah, so I'm always throwing up ahead and bringing the lure back with the tide.
Yeah.
If I'm fishing a drain or something like that, I might spot lock and throw it into the drain and then like fish back
Move
with
on.
it. Yeah. I think you see some guys and they spot lock somewhere and then they're fishing behind themselves and they're working it against the tide and things like that. It's quite hard to be in constant contact with your lure working it against the tide. You get a lot of snags, you get a lot of weed because the weed will fold over that way. Say the tide's running this way, weed all folds over and you're working your lure back this way. It's always swimming into the weed, you're always catching it. It's quite hard to actually fish. But yeah, it's a great tool having an electric, but how many guys don't have an electric? You'll learn way more because you're made to read the water. I fished the Flathead Classic for probably the first 6, 7, 8 years without an electric. Done a lot of trolling, read water, that type of thing, and you learn a lot more. Because 9 times out of 10, if you go out with an electric and then the battery runs flat or something like that, you're screwed and you go home. Because you haven't had to think about,
You need to think.
it's
which
blowing that
current.
way, you're going to get washed this way type of thing. You never actually have to do it. You just pull up, put it in the water and do what you want to do. So I strongly urge you all to try, after this or in the future or what, go out without the electric and without a sounder and just look. Because sometimes you don't always have that with you. So yeah, and you learn a lot more.
You learn to do things like you learn backing up into it with with your motor while you're still fishing.
Yeah.
And also, when you're fishing at edge, you might actually drive the boat onto the edge and put your motor down, anchor yourself down with the motor into the mud. Not good for the motor, but you can tilt it back up before you start it. and hold yourself in the position and cast up current and let it come down. Lots of things you do. Okay, so getting back to the prawns. So when I fish that bit deeper water, and that's 4 to 6 or 7 or 8 metres, I'm a bit aggressive with my twitching. So rather than little twitch like Stewie's saying, I'll 1, 2, 3. So I actually do it. I do it really weird. So I'll do one, and it's quite loose in my hand. I'll do it this way, it's probably easier. So I do one like that, and I hold it loose, and then I just spin the handle. And what happens is, I watch my place. I've done it in the pool all the time, watching it in clear water. So when I do like the one like that, it'll actually dart, as Stu was saying, they glide. So especially the gold prawns, they don't have any legs on them. There's no action bar gliding, but they glide so good. They're like all over the joint. So I do 1, 2, 3, and then I just drop it back down. Then turn the handle, and that's it, just like that. A lot of times, like dunk, because that handle, what it does is, as it's about to hit the water, hit the bottom, sorry, it gets ripped away from them. They get really annoyed, and they nail it. And they hit it hard. The thing is, you have to be really quick at getting the handle because it's already on there, right? You have to know where the handle is. So I've missed a few times, but most of the time I get it. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, and so that's doing that under the water, and then it just glides back down again. It normally goes in that sort of pattern, and then all of a sudden it gets ripped back this way because the handle goes forward. Different technique, but that's just what I do. Yeah. But a lot of other good prawns that we'll talk about the prawns for a sec. Stu and I do a lot with smarky prawns. They're also very good.
Yeah, they're quite good. So any of this type of pre-rigged prawn, it's quite important to pull that jig head straight out and put a jig head in it.
Yep. I love using the power bait strings as well. So these are quite well priced. They're another Berkeley product. Again, they glide. These things are really good at jumping pin and the Seaway area. And I'm using a quite a light jig head because most of the time I'm fishing that real shallow stuff up on the shallows. And I'm using only 1/6 in about a 4/0 or 3/0, so quite a big hook. Yep. So I'll just rig a couple of these up and pass these around for you real quick. Sorry guys. Real quick.
While you're doing that,
Yeah.
how do you know where to position?
Okay. Yep. So I generally, the easiest way to break it down, if you're going to say select a hook for soft plastic, 2/0 generally does like a 2 to 3 inch plastic. 3/0 does about a 3 to a 4. 4/0 does about a 4 to a 5. So you're always working on the same size lure as the hook size, and then up one. When you're doing it, soft plastic jig head, just lay it up alongside it and make a bit of a mental note of where it's going to come out. Then just thread it on through the nose. Just try to keep it really straight like a worm in the center of the lure or whatever, and then just pop it out through the top. So it's plastics these days are pretty durable. So if you don't get it right the first time, you can pop it out there and give it another shot. But yeah.
So that's the sort of thing I'll use in that 6 to 7 or 8 metres of water. So that's a 1/2 ounce jig head on a football. Football's a really good jig head because they sit on the bottom flat, they don't roll over. So it's sitting natural all the time. As soon as you do the first flick up, the tail flicks like a prawn flicks, right?
Doug, when you're talking about the Seaway, I've only ever been out there once, whereabouts are you talking?
Can't tell you that.
I know
Just joking. Jace will kill me. No, I'll tell you. No, it's
I was on the north corner.
yeah. Where the pipes are, where the pipe gets pumped out, that area. Yeah.
And I mean, 10 metres, it was 10 metres where I was sitting, I've got the electric.
Yeah.
And first time ever, so I was casting.
Yeah.
But I should have obviously dropped.
No, you're doing the right thing. You got to make sure it's the bottom every time though. But
You sitting out the deep.
yeah, I sit at the deep. Yeah. So you're better off. Was the current coming in or going out at that time? Out. Okay, so I'd be sitting about from here to maybe you off the wall at the most, and if the rocks will be like just beside you here,
Yeah,
and casting up onto those shallow soft spots on the white spots.
so, as I say, you've got the quarter going out,
Yeah.
it seems. So I was just tucked in.
Yep.
So further down or on that corner?
No, that corner's fine. You got to work. We do the whole wall.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, do the whole wall.
On the inside.
But if you don't get the fishes in 3 casts, then it's probably time to meander down a little bit further.
And what you've just handed out there, that's roughly what you use for that scenario?
100%. Yeah. Those or the other ones I talked about earlier. Yeah, they're my 2 go-tos. But Jace uses more jerk shads in that area. Jace is very good fishing Seaway.
Yeah.
And we get a fish there, fair share there too. But we really love jumping pin area.
And as flat as it was yesterday, I mean, I was a bit nervous to even venture down it. I've got a 3.7 tinny.
That's fine. Yep.
But the conditions would have been fine yesterday for it.
Yes.
But
Correct.
even all along that north wall or south wall going out to the ocean.
No,
there,
you won't get them past the where the ship pipes come out there.
Yeah.
Excuse my French.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you get further out, you won't get much on the north or the south wall once you get
No.
past the tower.
Yeah.
Once you get past the tower, it's just like desolate.
Barren.
They just disappear.
Becomes jack/jewfish
Oh,
territory.
yeah. Big
Yeah.
chewies and big jacks along the
Yeah.
in the back eddies and that, but
Yeah.
talking Flathead tonight.
Yeah. So where the green beacon is, just from where you are, you would see the green beacon maybe 30 metres further around. Then there's another green beacon to your north.
Yep.
You're probably halfway between there.
I was roughly,
So I don't go any further east than about halfway between those two, and then I'll start working back north.
Yeah.
Mm.
I had no idea yesterday. I was just
Mm.
out there and caught 2.
Yeah. Look, you will get flattered in the deep there sometimes. You will, but it's quite aggressive on your gear. You lose a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We don't mind that. Yeah, that's right. We plan half it, but definitely concentrate on casting right up on. You actually hit the rock and then fall into the water.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Talking about your prawns, Dougie, like
Yeah.
we use a lot of I know you said take the weedless hook out.
Yeah.
We actually use a lot of those up in the weed. So
Mm.
a lot of places you go to, you look up and there's just weed, so you cast that out and you get weed. So you go to your weedless ones,
Mm.
you still fish a really light jig head, you can actually cast it right up into the slot, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then when you fish it, you got to fish it a little bit quicker, so you just
Doesn't fall into the mud weed.
don't
so
fall in the mud. The weed's
Mm.
fine. The
Mm.
weedless one will push the weed away, but if you can keep it out of the mud, you can just skim it across the top. But the fish do eat it, but it's a different type of take. You still feel the clunk, but when you feel the clunk, you need that heavier set rod. You know, you can't have your lighter tip. You need that, 4 to 8 kilo rod, because when you set the hook into them, you really gotta set the hook into them, and you got to remember you can never set too hard because they got a head like a rock.
Mm.
And once you drive that hook in, especially the weedless one, you'll find a lot of those ones they'll actually suck the prawn right in. So when you set the hook in and you haven't got it in the top lip, you've got it down in his gills. But it is really effective for fishing those weedless prawns over the top of the weed and in between especially if you pull up to a bank and it's all weed, all you see is weed. If you can see a little patch of sand in amongst that weed, that's where your flathead will be sitting. If he's not sitting in that patch, he'll be sitting just off the edge in the weed, waiting for the bait to come into that sand patch.
That's a weedless scenario.
That's the weedless ones, yeah.
So the other, like Jason was saying, sometimes you look at a bank and it's just flat weed and it's pretty featureless really. Like there's nothing there. There's always been someone that goes through when it's too shallow and digs a big hole with their prop and stuff. You throw along those trenches. They'll sit in there. Yeah.
So what's the clunk and ting?
It's them swallowing it straight down, right down in the ear.
You can.
So you feel it. You feel it's like ting, and that's when you know it's a big one.
I just say it's a bite, but Dougie likes to put a sound to it or a word. Yeah.
Well,
a bit
if it made a sound,
yeah.
it'd be a tink.
Jason must be big.
Jason,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
it's an awesome feeling.
those football ones,
Yeah.
can you use those on that other one?
Use them anyway.
Like,
Oh, anything,
Yeah.
yeah, anything.
So they're
Yeah,
saying
I
something
only used to use.
different.
We actually only used to use football jiggers for many years.
Are they from
Yeah.
you?
We sell those, yeah.
Yeah, I know you sell.
Yeah.
Do you make them?
No, Stuart's doing them for a while, but it's no time.
Never seen them before, that's the first time.
Yeah.
I've seen them.
Yeah.
They're quite good because they sit upwards. So the hook will always sit upwards.
They sit like that.
So they don't really roll over. So a normal jig head will roll over. Yeah.
Because the plastics these days generally float up, but the head holds it the front down. So when you move it straight away, it flicks that way. Where a lot of your plastics are, the normal head they roll over, they're sort of on the side, and when you do the first switch up, it sort of comes back around, which can emulate a fish that's injured, I guess, but it doesn't present as like a full-on live fish. Yeah.
No, he rigged it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Your UV coloured jig heads, different colours, different
Yeah.
situations.
So I've got a whole lot of jig heads here to go through a bit later, but really, it's a good question, mate. UV bodies on. So I don't know if you guys know about UV. Does anyone know about UV? Not know about UV? So UV's it's a enhancement they put into the plastic or the jig head, and it we don't see it, but the fish see it. But we see it with the UV light, but we don't see it naturally. They do, supposedly. So it makes it like super bright. Okay, so they see it a lot easier in the distance, maybe. So if you're using a plain lead head, and it was on the plain soft plastic that's not UV, and the water's a little bit dirty, it's probably not going to stand out too good. But if it's UV, to them it's like turning the lights on. Oh, there's something over there, I'm going to go and check it out, sort of thing. So it's a great thing for, I think, fish. We know it works for us anyhow. Yeah. Actually, all know I didn't bring it up yet, but the S factor, which is a commonly used, most common sold scent, it's UV. So if you put it on the fish, you don't see it on the plastic. But if you put your torch on your fingers after you've done it, they're all glowing. So that's how it is, right?
Don't wipe your eyes.
Or put it in your sandwiches.
You're saying take the weedless hook out and put it in your own jig head.
We do a different way if the bottom's like semi-clean, if that makes sense. Like patches of sand amongst the weed and whatever, we sort of can bounce it a bit better or whatever.
Yeah.
But when it's full on weed and the fish are fit, so there's flatties are hide amongst the weed too, big ones. That's a better scenario to do that. But the hookup rate's not as good. I don't know. What do you reckon?
I reckon it's crap, yeah.
Jay
But
said he find
yeah,
hookup rate.
If you can get a jig head into it, your hookup rate's probably 75-80% more chance of hooking up
Yeah.
on that
Mm.
than you are on that, because that you've got to really set the hook into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These ones you don't.
Mm.
The way a weedless hook works is they have to actually clamp down on it and expose the hook.
Mm.
So
then you've got to drive the hook in.
flatties
Jason.
are quite a weird shaped mouth anyway. They're quite flat. I think that a lot of the time with a weedless hook, generally instead of going this way and it biting down and exposing the hook, it goes sideways. And even if they crunch down on it, it still comes out.
Yeah.
So that's my view on it. I think a standard jig head with actual hook exposure, even if I'm fishing a very heavily vegetated area, be it trees or weed and that type of thing, I'll just go a lighter jig head so it still glides around and doesn't really hit the bottom as much. But I've still got hook exposure at the top. Yeah. I just like hooks. Yeah.
So I'm just going to show you a couple more jig heads here that are really.
It's hard enough to get a bite. You want it to stay stuck. Yeah.
I'll just pass these around. There's a couple of ones here that are really good plastics that are popular. Jacksons we sell a lot and they do work really well. The smaller size in that power bait that went around earlier with the football jig head, that's the smaller brother. They work really well. And then we got some Japanese stuff that's fairly new in the market, which we haven't even tried yet this season, but we will. Which is like a paddle tail prawn, if that makes sense. That thing there, if you can see that. Looks really cool. Scented as well. Good smell. If I was a prawn. That's not the right jig head for it though. But you want a bit bigger. I haven't got any here in 5 O's, so there's 4 O's. Just fused ones. Anyhow, that size, we'd probably run about a 4O in it. But I'd be using that with, again, a real light jig head up in the shallows, probably about a 1/6 or 1/4 4O. Works really good. Very, very soft.
I think colours are plastic. I mean, if the water's dirty, it's clear, do you go a lighter colour, dark colour, so how do you sort of choose? Or best way, I mean, you get some that are dark coloured, some are real brightly coloured.
Yeah. So a dark colour will always cast a silhouette. So if you're fishing, say, water with a lot of silt in it and things like that, or it might be a bit cloudy, a bit dirty, a darker colour, you might think it's harder to see, but being a solid colour, be it like a dark brown or a black or something like that, it's actually creating a body in the water. Whereas a bright lure like a pink or something like that, you might think it's easier to see, but because it's lighter, disappears. It's a little bit to get your head around. But biggest thing is, I think dirty water uses solid colour, so something not transparent, so a block colour. And then if it's clean, then I use like my transparency type colours, like more natural stuff. Yeah.
If you want one that works everywhere, it's white or white.
I was going to say white.
Yeah.
White's so good.
Why is white the most popular colour?
Yeah.
It probably because it looks natural most, I guess.
Yeah.
And in all different situations of watercolour. So yeah, white just is probably our biggest seller in soft plastics, I guess. Probably better one.
Yeah.
This is the one from that's the
Squidgy
prawn. Yeah, it's a great prawn as well. It doesn't have the feelers on it at all. It's just a raw prawn with a couple of little legs on the bottom that obviously vibrate in the water, but the tail's quite soft. And the eyes are very good too.
Like the real big soft glides, like the My Little Box ones?
Yeah, so the bigger ones, not so much on the flatties. Probably that green one going around would be about the biggest size we'd use, mate. 5 inches, probably about it. And there's a lot of really good looking like yabby types. This brand here is exceptionally good in their colours. And there's a couple of good styles that incorporate sort of prawn style / other types, like a curl tail.
I have a side question.
Yeah.
On those weed beds you were talking about, at high tide, do they have squid?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Always have a. So, folks, this time of the year, if you got that 6 rod, always have it rigged up with squid jig on it, because they're big calamari squid always that you see.
And the other thing with the current, do you put a sinker on the end of your line and squid jig to get it down a bit?
Look, if you're drifting with it while you're casting flathead lures around, and you just want to have it hanging there, down the bottom, maybe for arrow squid you would, but for normal squid, no. No, definitely not. So any questions on the prawns at all, folks? Everyone's happy? Yes,
Do you have like
please.
a specific shape jig head you use for a prawn?
So I always used to use the football jig heads, but now I use anything.
Yeah, football seems weird to put that on there.
Yeah, it's football jig head I use in the deeper water. Does that sound? And everything else I use normal one. Yeah.
Do you prefer like put a colour on there?
I generally actually don't. Actually, I think I fuse one. Ms. Argo, if you're watching, can you please get me a fuse 4.0 or 5.0 jig head, please, in a 1/6 or 1/4? Thank you. So it'll come up. How's it? Just a fuse one. It's superb. It's so good. Thanks, Stuart.
Oh yeah, that's a Dougie one.
What did I do?
It was all right before you got it, but you broke it.
So let me just tell you, about probably half the plastics that you can get these days are stretch, which are like 10x material, and the other half are traditional style, like that one. We try and stretch it, it breaks. But the action on the non-stretchy type is by far better than a stretchy type action. A little bit more restricted. Yeah. Don't like it? Yeah. Sorry, mate?
It's easy to get a jig in head into.
Yeah, much easier. So stretchy ones are very hard to put a jig head on, especially popping it over the edge. So you got to really. Or actually, I'll do it right now for you. Actually, I'll find a stretchy one. Actually, I'll do this with Stewie first. These are the fuse ones we're talking about. These things are my favourite big prawns jig head. Thank you, Stuart. Absolutely fantastic. So I'll do one of those green ones up that just broke before, but just don't pull on its tail too much, please. So the last person gets to see it. So these ones here, I'll look at a UV light here maybe.
I don't think so.
Doesn't sound. Okay. These things have a very, very bright UV belly. So when it's in a clear type of plastic, it stands out like you know what. and works very, very well. But we'll put my green one here. So it's a 5.0, it's a very small jig header, but I'm using this up in the shallows where it's only like a metre deep. That'll be the top one it's due. First time I've ever put a hook on one of these things. These are brand new.
Except for the one up here's half.
Yeah.
Should have used the broken one.
So you can actually see that orange belly in there. If you can you see that from where you are? So it's already, I'll see that stand out. But that's the type of thing I'll be using up in the shallows.
So the hook size, is it about, the fish size, it's about
The lure size.
The lure size.
100%, my
So
friend,
like
that's
a
spot on.
3 inch would be what,
No, 2.0.
2.0.
2.0,
2.0,
3.0.
3.0 max. 4 inch, 3.0, 4.0, 5 inch, 4.0, 5.0.
okay.
So if you went down one size to the inch size, that makes sense?
Yeah, so.
Yeah, 2, 3,
three
on
inch,
3.
2.0,
Yeah, correct.
4 inch, 3.0.
Yeah, up to the same size, 4 inch. Yeah.
Is that because there's more hook clearance?
Pretty much, and the length of it.
Length.
Yeah.
And then when you get to, please don't use over a 5.0 on flatties. Like 6.0 would be on some brands maybe okay, but not really. So it's going to be 5.0 is your stop point. 6.0 maybe if you're going to fish out and jump in bar where it's ripping and you're using maybe 2 ounce or ounce and a half jig on a big soft plastic, something like that type of thing there. You might use a 6.0 in that, but that's the only time you use a 6.0. So it's going to be predominantly 2, 3 and 4, that's what you said, with the odd 5 and 6. Yep.
With the plastics, how would you often would you replace? Was it like per fish you kind of catch, but it's a bit...
I'm a tight ass, so I try and get as much as I can out of it. So
Yeah.
if I'm using a gulp shrimp, and it'll have its feels ripped off on the side, the 2 little ones will be gone.
Yep.
And then I've caught say 3 or 4 or 5 fish, I don't know what it might be, and it just keeps falling down a bit.
Yep.
So because it's ripped too much at the top,
Yep.
so I'll turn it upside down and then stick it out to the bum. And then I'll get another couple of fish. I think my record's about 12 or 13 on one plastic. And then I'll do it sideways, but then on the bite it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As long as you do the right action.
Cool.
And I'll have it at the side and give it another crack until it doesn't slide down anymore. Especially if it's the only one I got left in my packet that colour. I just give it right to the death.
It's usually the small ones that destroy your plastic more than the big
Oh,
ones.
they do, they
You
do.
get the big ones, that you'll come back and take, you get those little tackers, we call them rattlers, you call them rattlers if you want one. You know you got a small one because your rod will start going off it.
Yeah.
But you get the bigger ones, if your rod starts going all
Yeah.
side to side, that's your bigger fish. But
Yeah.
your rattles will destroy it before the bigger ones will.
Yeah, and a lot of plastics get destroyed getting them out of the fish's mouth with pliers.
Yes.
So you try and grab the shank, but you'll actually rip the plastic away because it gets stuck in the pliers, whatever it may be. Yeah. Okay. So we've done the prawns. Oh, sorry.
With your plastics,
Mm.
I want to be imitating the bait that is there anyway.
Mm.
That doesn't look anything like any of the bait.
Exactly. Nor does half the stuff on this table, but it bloody works.
Yeah.
So,
But
look,
but
what
it's
is it?
really to pick the ones that
Yeah,
you want
it-
to use, I think it'd be using the ones that look like the bait rather
Yeah.
than the ones that look.
Correct. Look, if there's no bait around, which is probably a lot of the time, they're eating anything. But when the bait is predominant and everywhere in that area where you're fishing, try and match the hatch at that time. As it's saying, grab rod number 3.
There's really
That's the one.
not bait, it's really just purely attractive.
Correct.
Well, they're an ambush predator, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. They are. Yeah, they're hiding and buried, and they'll come out and latch on it.
How long would you throw without getting a hit on something?
3
before you
throws.
change?
3 throws. That's it.
And then you change, if you're going to get a hit, you'll change.
Maybe
Little.
try a different area. Like if a spot lock says to say we're casting up current, you'll try up on the shallows. You maybe try one in the deeper, and I occasionally go to the abyss. Stewie doesn't. Out in the deep. Sometimes they're sitting down the edge. There might be bait down or whatever. But after that, if I don't get a bite, I'll move on, or maybe change plastic would be the last case scenario.
Yeah.
Which often happens, but if you've got 2 or 3 of you in the boat, that's the best thing. You don't always use the same thing until the fish come on, then you might switch all the same. But if one guy's got more than 2 bites deal 0, then straight away and look at what he's using, you know, and switch. Because that could be the game changer in that area that you're fishing that's not working for you. And that's why it's good to have a couple of different lures on at the same time. They might be taking a prawn, they might be taking a shad tail. It depends on the day. Yep. Okay. Go next. So we've done the prawns. Everyone's happy with the prawns now? I'm going to go now to shad tails now. This is one of Stewie's favourites.
Yeah, little paddle tails work really well. It doesn't have to be a Z-Man one, like the little rattle minnow from S Tackle works good. Those little power baits, they work quite good. The best thing about something like this is you don't have to do much to it. You can actually just throw it out on a 1/4 ounce jig head. It hits the bottom, you slowly wind it, you'll feel it hit the bottom every now and then, and they'll eat it. It's one of those things, you don't have to do too much. It does work better if you throw it out and feel the contact with the bottom and flick it up and it sinks back down and looks a bit more natural, but they have a lot of inbuilt action, so you don't have to do a great deal of it.
Yeah, that go there at the moment is a really good lure. Like it's a little 3-inch or 4-inch? 4-inch rattle minnow. So it's got a, I don't think you that, probably can't hear it. You'll be able to pass it around. Got a rattle in it. It's got a little scent tube, but it is already scented. It smells like my dog's been chewing on it. If that makes sense. Doesn't smell good.
Stinks.
Yeah. But the fish love it. So, that's what it is. I love to use, I haven't got any left because I gave it all to you guys, but there's a 1610 mushroom jig head in there, in your bags. It is the killer with that lure, okay? And that's on my rods ready to roll all the time at this time of year. So I'll put another jig head in it now, which is not the same one as what you guys have got, but it's a pink jig head that you've got I'm talking about. It just marries up really good with this lure. So as Jace was saying before, and Stewie, it's very hard to know with this stretchy type stuff where to put your jig head, okay? And they've all got this, if you use a jig head that's got the ribs all the way up to the head, they don't work very well, they fall down all the time, especially after you get a couple of fish on. So you need to get the jig head that's got the gap between the hook attachment, the head attachment, and the jig head itself. So there's a gap there with the hook, just the hook shanks around. And you need to push it up over that and all the way forward and nearly drive it over the top of this. Then it'll fall back and sit in the right position. Does that make sense? And it's very hard to get at the first go, even for us, it's for me anyhow. But just keep pushing up and pushing up and pushing up. Then pull it back and it'll straighten out, not too bad. Like so. Okay? So push it up, push it up, push it up.
Where's the rattle in it?
It's internal. It's at the
It's
back
like the
behind,
belly
it's
section,
behind the hook
yeah.
here.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's not a case of you're going to jam it in there somehow and...
No, it's already done.
It's in there, it's
No,
glued in
pretty
like
done.
a little pocket.
But in saying that, we do have the tools downstairs. Z-Man do one, so it's like a little syringe type thing, and you buy the little glass rattles, and you pop it in, makes a hole, then drop the tube down inside, then pull the needle back out, and it's internal. So that's a really good lure, and they do that. They did a pink colour, just a prototype, which we had. Stuart I had one each. We caught like about 10 fish each on our plastics, and then we finally got snagged at the bottom and lost it. Both lost. It was like a disaster. And the new ones haven't arrived yet. They're still coming. Maybe need for the Flathead Classic, unfortunately. But anyhow, it is what it is. But in the interim, this is one of Stewie's favourite colours, which is a shrimp colour in the Z-Man. That's a very good lure as well.
Yeah, it works quite well.
But all the Z-Mans work well as well. So this
out of your
paddle
out of
does.
the brands, what's probably what you call the best?
It would have been Z-Man probably 2 years ago. I would have said Z-Man, but now it's sort of there's so much new good stuff on the market. It's very spread out. So Cross City do some really good lures.
I think they all do one pattern good.
Yeah, that's probably the way of saying it.
So like someone does
They have
the
dubs
best
and they have
prawn,
good stuff.
someone does the best paddle tail. So yeah.
Is there something
There is so many.
Yeah.
We've got 50 different brands on the table. So, look, yeah. There's all new styles coming out too, like different ones that are quite some of that Japanese stuff I passed around before, but it's a hybrid of two different ones mixed. Rattles coming inside. Like, I still keep going back to Fuse Doctor. We got these finally come back again. To me, this is my go-to. There's a white one they do, which Stewie's got a couple of packets put away from me somewhere. He's saved them for me. That is like, if I had one lure to survive on for flatties on this earth, that's probably my first choice, in the white.
What brand is that?
It's Fuse Doctor. This one here. So they're coming out again in a whole range of good colours, including like that sort of colour going around now, in all different colours. But the white one's just an absolute killer. There's 2 white ones coming out, plus a glow, I think. But they'll be out in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. We'll have
Big
them.
ones as well.
So,
You get big ones as well on those?
yeah, there's a big one as well. There is a big one as well. That's the average size. They just work so good. So good. I nearly made Frankenstein once because I couldn't get any more than white. So I like melted it together. It's like a motley dog. It's like brown and white, black. Just because I can't get any more. But they're coming. They're coming back. So getting back to the paddle tails, McCarthy's are a great lure. Has anyone used McCarthy's before yet? Yeah. Favourite? So they are the gun. That colour's really, really good. Okay, that's white with the chartreuse top and the sparkles on it. The trouble with McCarthy's is a lot of the good brands that work really well, like that other one that went around, they break very easy. Sometimes it can be a one fish lure, but you get one fish more than what you would have got on other brands. Okay, so that's just that normal smell, but it's just such a great lure that, as I said before, the ones that don't stretch or sort of break if I pull it too hard, they have the best action. A bit like that green shrimp going around. So I'll pass that around plus the lure out of it. Let's do that. Live ops. So you would have saw Nomad do the launch recently of the live ops. So they do does, so they're called does of minnow. They do a 2, 3, 4 and 5 inches. And this is a 4-inch, which is the size we'll start using in the deep water from now on till probably the end of October for the big flatties, and running that probably on about a 1/2 to 3/4 ounce jig head, something like that type of thing. That's stretchy material. And they stink. Yeah. Yeah, talking like up the jumping pin, not up on the shallows but on the edge. You'll still cast up on the shallow to that first twitch, then it'll fall straight down to 10 metres deep. Yeah, but a lot of the deep water stuff, particularly that jump in at the mouth of Swan Bay area, it's like 10 to 15 metres deep, and the big flatties just sit there on the bottom in the deep. And your tea bag, so you're using like a 1 ounce jig head, quite a big paddle tail at the dozer, or a curl tail, and you just you might cast it at the depth, say 15 metres, but it'll come down below you. If you've got current and you spot lock them, then you cast a bit further up current. But generally speaking, you're drifting with it, and you just lift it up a little bit and hop it back down again. And as you go down, you're in touch with it the whole time, similar to using a vibe, and they'll hit it on the fall. Or you go to lift it, I'll be on there straight away. You think you snag, or that'll start moving. You know?
I just ordered 10 packets.
Did you? Oh, good. Okay.
From
Nomad.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So.
Still got no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah. Oh, well, I hope you got the right ones. We have them downstairs, but we just keep running out. There's another new one from Z-Man called Prawn, which is also another shad tail. It's not a bad shape as well. I'll pass that around as well. So all these lures are 30, so if you know that too, guys. Then you got stuff that's more in relation to the bait fish that you're seeing getting around, which is like a little profile, like a white bait profile, but with a paddle tail like the snag white. And this Rudy's one here too. I think this also has a rattle in here. It's a louder rattle, okay? So rattles actually do really work. They're definitely a game changer. I don't think the fish are used to it, and they definitely are inquisitive to hit it compared to no rattle, because it's only just recently started coming out, and like my son might be able to fish with Stewie and me, and he's just pulling fish in and going, what the hell? What's he using? And we look and he's got a lure with a rattle in it, a soft plastic with a rattle. And that's, boy. Cross City, I said before, great lure, this little whitebait one. Heavy hitter, you would have seen Mick Horn talking about these all the time, the heavy hitter. Great lure, and it's a little paddle tail. That's that stinky one that went around before, past that too, so you know what they are.
And you don't have any of them?
Oh, we do, he's got them in again. Yeah. He's got them in again. Is there anything you want to add to those, mate?
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah.
So the action on those is a bit more of a slower fall, so they'll actually swim down. The other ones, the prawns are going to dart away, like do their thing, they'll glide. These things just fall straight back down, but the tail swims down, and that's when they hit them. So you get a lot more fish on the fall with a paddle tail.
How high would you lift them?
It depends on the depth.
Yeah.
So if you're fishing in, that's a good question, how high do you lift your rod? So, I know about Stu, if you're fishing in, say 1 metre deep, how high do you lift your rod?
I don't fish it too high up in anything.
He moves it more forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use the reel more.
Yeah.
Yeah, where I'll lift it.
Yeah.
So if I'm fishing in about, 2.5 to 6 metres deep, I'll probably lift it up 2 metres.
Yep.
Or 1.5 metres.
Okay.
Yeah. And then swim back down.
Go down from
Yeah.
the sharp
Yeah.
you go.
Pause on the bottom.
Yeah, I do. I like to pause just for a second, a little bit. Even it might just drag a little bit. You might be drifting quite fast. But a lot of time you'll do that, it'll sort of get ripped out of your hand because it's swimming on the bottom, right? Sorry, man.
When you get through weed, I find that sort of helps.
Yeah, that sometimes too. Yeah, that's right. Because in the deep water, you can't see what's on the bottom, right? So you're sort of guessing what it is. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Stu said I'll pass that around too. These are the Berkeleys in that honeycomb, so they're a very soft tail. They did a great design. It's called the honey ball and honeycomb, which they took out a lot of the structure of the body and made it like a honeycomb. So it's a very, very soft lure. Heaps of action. And they're quite well priced too. And then, sorry.
So for the ones with the scent in the bag, do you pre-hook them the night before, or do you just do the jig?
So all the gulp stuff you need to put on when you get to the spot.
Yeah.
So otherwise it's going to dry out, it's going to be horrible.
Yeah.
When you finish fishing, take it off and put it back in the bag.
Yeah.
All the other stuff you can pre-rig.
Yeah, pre-rig it.
A
Yeah,
month
but
before
my favourite ones are pre-rigged.
Yeah.
Except for the bolt. It'll just be a bad jiggle. Because you're going to try and get as many fish as you can out of that colour before you change it. Yeah. And then you get stuff like this type of thing here. Actually, not this one, sorry. This one. Which is going more to the curl tail type, or which we'll talk about in a minute, but with a little tiny paddle tail on the end. So a longer tail, but still with a little knob on the end, which are going to give it lots of action. So I took these Japanese guys fishing that make these lures earlier this year, I think it was. And we smashed it on these things, that colour actually. I don't know what it is about the orange, like not many people like orange lures or use orange lures, but they are a bigger selling, once you use them, reef lure for say for coral trout and stuff like that. And they're also getting very popular for flatties and stuff like that. So but for many people they don't like the colour. So something to get your head around. What's orange, you know? Maybe clownfish. But they do work really, really well. Golds always work well, gold and black, but orange and gold's also extremely good. That's probably about it on those things.
What are those little balls in there?
The rattle. So you put that in the soft plastic.
Yeah. That's it.
Clips.
Clips?
Divided question. I don't mind clips on some things, but the problem is they catch weed. So you need to make sure your clip's very small. So use like a little fast touch or those little quick connector type things. I don't use anything above a size 1. So very, very small. With this stuff, does it impair the action of the lure? It does change it a bit. It has to. It's something extra. But yeah, it's either that or tie straight on.
The only good about it is you're not cutting your line at the time and retying it. So when you get a good fish on, whether it be even a 45 centimetre, if it swallows it down, you have to retie. Because you're just playing with death. Because next cast might be a 90, and even just, you know yourself, when you test it before you cast it, sometimes after you caught a fish, it just pops straight away. And you think, oh, that's close, I've got to throw that and got a big one, you know. So you need to continually cut, and tie a loop knot. Stewie ties direct.
I never tie a loop knot.
I always tie direct loop knot.
Horrible things.
Jace,
they
third
break
opinion?
in the loop.
I because I prefer just tie straight to it because it's easier.
Yeah, it's quicker, it's easier. Yeah. Much more advanced.
Learn it.
Most days you get older though, because you always you're swapping these guys out.
Yeah. I know. Oh, that's true.
Who catches more fish?
Well,
depends who you ask.
Yeah, that's right.
The biggest thing is with a loop knot, and this lure fishing, whether it be popping for whiting or doing this stuff or anything, it's very hard on gear. There's a lot of slack tight. And there's a lot of strain on everything. So you got to think you've got a jig head tied on with a hard metal loop, and you've got your soft leader. It's like this the whole time. Every time you go jig, it goes jig, 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 jig. You do that for 2 casts and have a look at it, and it'll already start flattening off the line in the loop. So eventually the loop's got to break. It has to. So you just retie them more than you have to. Yeah.
In saying that, when Stewie ties his directly, he leaves a tag that's about this long. And I said, cut your tag, because it annoys the crap out of me. But he reckons it's
prawn feeler.
Prawn feeler. I look at it all the time. I feel like at the night I was sizzling and snip. Yeah. But anyhow, it is what it is. I got earlier. I talked about earlier about. It's too late in the year now, but for next year, when June, July comes in, you get a lot of those little rats, and you can get like 100 fish a day on plastics if you know what you're doing. And not that we're going to keep 100, might keep half a dozen, but this is the sort of size profile that we're using. That's the pink one's probably about as big as we're going to use. That small type of profile.
So you'll catch fish on this stuff all year. Like, I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
They haven't read the book and they think that it's good. Yeah, they can't eat it now. They're still going to eat it, but it's just the fact that, as Dougie was saying, when you kind of start fishing, as soon as it gets cool, water temperature drops. A lot of that real small bait comes out from wherever it is, and the fish are generally a little bit smaller, and they hone in more on this size. So, yeah.
No one's asked how long a leader we use yet.
How long a leader do you use, Doug?
Ask Stewie. That'll give you my answer.
I start off about this long, and I use it till it's about this long.
I start off about that long and get to about that long. Yeah, before I retire. Why do we do different length leaders? We have different answers. Stu, what's your answer, mate?
Well, I'm a tight ass, so I get 2 litres out of one, and I've only got to waste that much, whereas you waste 2 bits that much to one.
That's true. That's no, that's still the same.
That's not. Double the waste.
I do a short one, so my knots outside of my tip most of the time, so I don't get any fouled up casts.
Tie good knots like an FG knot, you won't have a problem. Yes.
But if you're doing that,
yep.
But you've got a little bit of heavier leader.
Yep. So okay, so if you're using a real light leader, I still use my arms width, which is about 6 foot. I'm only going to change that little white section.
12 to 15 centimetres long.
Yeah, so only on the light stuff. So if I'm using like 8 pound or 6 pound or whatever, and then that much 12, I just use that 12 until I just think a flatty bites it and swallows it. It's going to suck it down about that far, so it's got to be about that long.
Yeah.
So I use it until it's about say 4 or 5 inches. Cut it off, start again. Yeah.
The
That little end bit.
Thing to remember, Brendan, is when they're really on the chew, like now, you can just use 20 or 16 all day long.
Yeah.
They don't really care. They don't care. And there's less changing, there's no little bits on the end. And you probably get the less having to check it, because you know, unless you get a real big one, it's going to be pretty safe. Yeah. So if you just catch it like 40 or 50 centimetre ones all day, you probably change it twice maybe. Where 12 or 8, you're changing it consistently. Yeah. Okay. We've done the shad tails. Everyone's happy with that? You can do a slow roll too. So you can cast with a really light jig head across the weed like Jay said earlier, and just keep your rod tip up and just slow wind it, slow roll. If you can get it right to the top and just maybe half a metre deep, pause for a second, let it swim back down. They get a lot of hits that way as well. Then just keep that rod tip on about probably that angle, and just slow wind it, slow wind it, slow wind it, a little bit, slow wind it, slow stop. Just keep doing that, and it'll just come in like that. If you've ever, has anyone ever trawled soft plastics at all before? Works very, very good. So I learned this many years ago. My kids are lazy, they want to bring it in, so I just putt around to the next spot, around the corner, around the bank a bit further. They'd have their soft plastics out, just with a 3/4 ounce, a 3/8 ounce jig head on it, and they would get smashed. The rods, Dad had got one on, that'd be a good flatty, you know. So I thought, oh, this obviously works. So we've then do a fair bit of winding on the bottom, just slow winding it across the bottom in deeper water, like 2 or 3 metres deep, with a paddle tail only though, and you catch flatties that way as well. You tried that, Jase?
Yeah, it's really
real slow.
Even though really, you don't even have to jig them.
No jigging.
Let it sink to the bottom.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of good fish, flathead fish, and I fish with fish, let it sink to the bottom. Literally do half turn.
Yeah.
So your line goes like that.
Yeah.
Slate, stop.
Yeah.
Half turn.
Yeah.
Half turn.
Yeah.
And then it will smash it.
Yeah.
To the bottom.
Yeah, so just try that technique as well. Okay. Stewie, curl tails. So curl tails are, before we do Jase to the jerk shad, but curl tails are like a jerk shad or a prawn or whatever it is with the tail that goes like that. Okay, like this fella here. I'll pass this around.
So
I'll pass it.
A curl tail is probably the. Is there anyone in the crowd that hasn't caught a flatty on a soft plastic? No, everyone's caught one. So, yeah. Okay.
One.
More after this. But, look, this is probably the easiest.
Big photos are big ones, I know, I can feel it.
This is probably the easiest lure to use in general.
Yeah.
And
it's the original.
And this is any curl tail in general, yeah. It swims, it does everything itself. So when it sinks, the curl tail works. When it's sitting on the bottom, the tide will make the curl tail work. If it drifts along, the curl tail's still working. Like, you don't have to do anything. You can throw it out and you can just wind it in. You can honestly just drift along and just hop the rod as you're drifting along, and it's working. It's doing all of its action. So, yeah, always hook point up and they just work. Yeah.
This creeper, this little one here is a crossbreed. So it's like got the prawn legs underneath it. You can see that. Right there. And it's got the curl tail on the back, but it's quite a very, very soft one. So a lot of action, like Stewie's saying. And I know that Mike and Mel have been catching lots of the people design this. A lot of good flatties around the Seaway and jumping pin area on that little thing, and big ones like 80, 90 centimetre ones. So I pass that around. Look, one of my favourite curl tails is the Atomic Flazos in the crawdad colour in the 3 and the 5 inch, just the 3 inch. That colour is a really weird colour. It's called crawdad colour. And it's a Fat Grub is the brand of the model of the lure. And it is an absolute killer. So that one I'll use in the deep water, and I'll cast it right up on the shallow banks as well. Again, the tail. So when you wind them or they sink back down, the tail unfolds to become quite a long profile. So it'll go from that big to that big when it stretches out. And if that's what makes the fish turn on and want to bite it, I guess that's what it is. Becomes all of a sudden the bait becomes bigger. Like at a I don't know, restaurant, and the prawns are big in the table of prawns. You can't grab the big one. Same deal. All of a sudden, this bait becomes big and they hit it. So, yeah, they're really, really good.
Is that on your rod, the curl tail, out of the fall?
Used to be.
Yeah, I don't fish
Used to
many
be for me.
They work.
They work very well.
They get
But
boring.
sorry,
They get boring.
that one's not though. That one's a killer. But out of all the curl tails I've got downstairs, that would be my pick. Yeah. That one or a 5 inch. Yeah. There's a new style. We just got these in. Stu and I haven't really tried them yet. Although Jack just used another day called fish, didn't he? Those fellas.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a new one from Berkeley Power Bait. They're a bigger version, but with the natural print on them. So they're stamp printed, so like a natural bait fish sort of thing, but with a really big curl tail. So again, it's that shape, and then it stretches out to that sort of shape, quite long profile. The thing I like about these is they have their hollow belly, so they're going to float up like that on the jig head in the water. They'll sit like that in the water column on the bottom, and you can roll it. So when it's that sort of fatter style, they'll do that sort of like emulate like a dead bait fish sort of thing. And some great colours in those too, and they're well priced again. Like I'm not much of a blue lure man because we don't get many lures in blue, right, or natural colours. But these guys do a really nice one as well. I'll cut that one out, pass this around and have a look. And they smell like off blue cheese, but that's what the scent has always been for Berkeley power bait. It's a good, it works, it definitely works. The shrimp that went around earlier with the pink jig head in had the same smell. Yeah. Any questions on that at all? Okay. So that's the curl tail style. Jace, do you want to talk about your shads? So I've got a few here for you as well, mate. I'll pass this around too. This is another hybrid. This is a shad tail with a ball tail on the end to give it a lot more action.
No, you go.
Okay. It's Japanese as well. And then you can get stuff like our prawns earlier that have little blades on the end. Can you see those little blades there? Those little blades. So it'll actually spin around while you're retrieving it. It's never ending. I'll pass those couple of weird things around as well. And this is actually also good prawns. We could show you that earlier. It's a great one as well. Jason, all yours, mate. The helm's yours, buddy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Jason
There's a
from
few
the
bigger ones here too.
Sport Fishing Club. As Dougie said, I fish mostly jerk shads. I do fish the paddle tails and the prawns and that, but the team of guys I fish in, we basically fish all the comps together. We fish 3 different styles. This is my style. One of the other guys fishes prawns, and the other guy, he fishes a paddle tail. Pretty well exclusive here. Now, probably gulp are the one that I use the most because I've used them for about 10 years, 12 years now, and they just, for me, they just work. That's right. And realistically, all they are is a stick. All they are is a tapered stick. They don't do anything. Like, you know, your paddle tail, he wobbles along, and your prawns, his legs move, but these things don't. If you just drop it to the bottom, it just sits there. Like, it doesn't think. So mostly what you need to do with it is it's your action. So before I get into the rigging on that, I'll just show you the action first. Basically, I just flick it out, and it's a wind and a jig. Wind and a jig. Like Stewie does it. Looks like that, but it's just a wind and a jig. That's all it is. It's nothing special. So if you want to learn how to use these, the best place to do it is in the shallows. In about 3 foot of water, just drop it over the side and just work your action. And everybody got their own different type of action. Mine is like just like that. So I'll just cast it out, let it sink. This could be in 2 foot of water. It could be in 4 meters of water. I use the same ones. Cast it out, let it sink. Let the slack go down. Obviously, you'll watch it down to your jig head, and then you get your bit of slack in your line. And I'll leave it sit there for probably 3 or 4 seconds, because a lot of your flathead, if it sees it coming down, sits on the bottom, it just sits there. And your flathead's right behind it. He's just looking at it, or she's just looking at it if it's a bigger one. And as soon as you do that first jig, whack, they actually hit it. They won't hit it on the way up. They'll hit it because you're only moving it about that far. So it comes up, and drops back down, and then they'll launch into it. But a lot of times too, you cast out, let it sit there on the bottom. You go do the first jig, and you don't even feel the bite. It's on. You go, I got weight. Yeah. And then obviously set the hook. I'll hold the rod to the side a bit more. A lot of guys like to high stick and get them up high, but you basically got to keep the flathead in the water. So just pull him along the side, take your time, get him in. But that's the action I use for every jerk shad I use, whether it's 3 inch, 4 inch, 5 inch, 6 inch. It's all the same action. So you just wanted to get it. So they just come up off the bottom and they dart. They dart like that, side to side. Dart side to side, and then they just fall. They just fall like a stick. They don't flutter down. They just drop to the bottom. So I like to fish a 1/4 or a 3/8. Well, actually, I went last Friday. I fished a little rock bar, and the young bloke I fished with, my young bloke, he was snagged. So I was just flicking it around like that, and a 70 centimetre flathead come up off the bottom in about 1.5 meters of water and hit it about a foot off the surface. I thought it was a pike actually. Just come up, grabbed it, took off, and went, look at this cheeky little bugger. and went, oh, maybe it's not cheeky little bugger. He took off. But if you did, it's all I do. And we fished the last of the elites. We tripped over a big mud bank, and the boys were throwing big stick baits and hard bodies, and I was just fishing a little one of these, but in the chartreuse colour. Just bounce it along the mud, and you can see the flathead actually coming up and eating it, literally right at your feet. It's just a matter of getting your action right. Once you get your action right, the fish will eat it. Like, and that's from anywhere from the Seaway. So I fished I pass it around, mate. Yeah. If you have a look at them, if you haven't used them before, but early in the season, as Dougie was saying, the baits are small. Most of your white baits are, that 2 to 3 inch size, and some are even smaller. So the start of the season, which is, June, July, we use the smaller ones. I do anyway. I use the smaller ones, the 3 inch. That's actually a really good colour, the Starry Night. That looks like the white bait, but we use that on a 2.0, like a 1.6 So just flick it out again, just let it drop to the bottom, and you just that one you can work a bit more aggressive because the fall's a bit slower because you're fishing with a 6, not a heavier one. And then as you get more into your season, you like end of July, August, September, we move more up into the where's the black one go? Here, that one. That's been my number one colour in the demon head. I fish the demon heads a lot. I like the coloured jig heads. I think they just give so if you're fishing a 4-inch profile lure like that, you put the head on it like that, it just makes it a little bit bigger. Makes it a little bit bigger compared to everything around. So the red has always been my go-to, or midnight, Red Nightmare.
Red Nightmare, yeah.
Red Nightmare, and I go through a lot of them, and they're good price for the other ones. But lately I've been using the white. This season I've used white, and I've used the same jig head for all through the elite and all since then.
You're obviously not fishing the Seaway.
No, not fishing the Seaway. No, I would have lost 6 of them by then. But I've lost both eyes. He's scratched, even the tips bent over a little bit, but they still catch fish. They still work. Just them ones there. And I know a lot of guys fish just your plain lead, but these just give it a different look. The eyes, I don't know whether the eyes shine more during the day or not.
Yeah, they're more popular than that colour.
Yeah, they're more popular. I don't usually, in the coloured heads with these, probably only fish a quarter in the coloured, and then when I get to a bit, that's with your 4-inch.
Quarter ounce.
Quarter ounce 3.0 in the demon heads. Now that colour there, watermelon pearl, and also the chartreuse and white, which I didn't see on your wall down there, Dougie.
It's in the boxes.
They're in the boxes in there. Chartreuse and white's probably the number one colour I use. I use it all day, every day. Whether it's
very similar colour.
Yeah, very similar to that colour.
And that one works well too.
That one works really well. That's the colour. But whether it's dirty water, clean water, whether it's 5 metres deep or it's 5 inches deep, I use that. But as soon as that water gets really clean, that's the one I just parked around. As soon as that water gets really clean, like super clean, I go to that. That's the watermelon pearl, and I use that in a 3-inch, 4-inch, 5-inch. So when you move to the Seaway, we go a little bit bigger because we're hoping for that bigger fish. Obviously, then we go more to a not the standard jig head, but in a 3/8. I use a 3/8 3/0. Always used to use a 3/8 2/0, a little bit smaller hook. So I just think you use a little bit smaller profile on the hook, so that the fish just eat them. They really do. But it's just about getting that action. So if they're really aggressive and your fish are hitting you a lot, you can go as aggressive as you like, working that plastic. But if you get to a stage where the fish are not eating, like they're shut down, we'll fish that jerk shad still, but instead of it, we'll just go just a little shake, and you're only moving it that far. Especially when you get to the Seaway and around those sand patches. Now you want to keep the lure in his face. So a lot of times, a lot of guys, especially when they're learning, they'll do this, but they won't eat it because you're lifting it from the ground to about here, and he's not going to come up and eat it. He wants to eat it if it's in his face. So you just keep rattling, keep shaking it in his face, and eventually they'll snaffle it. But Gulp have got some really good colours coming out.
They have, Some
really exceptional colours like that. I've caught fish on that, but not many of them.
I've got a
But
question with the gold.
you know,
You know, it's a minnow and the tail's a bit twisted, like in the packet, just from packet.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
No,
No,
it's like you know, you got the minnows, they kick up
Yeah.
or they're twisted.
So nearly all
Yeah,
the packets, you'll get one that's
One
Yeah.
or two.
Like
Prawns the same too. The tails or something.
So I
So
run
kink in it. That's-
backpack, and they all go to the bottom of the backpack, and they're
Yeah.
all
yeah. But
Yeah.
a lot of times with them, it
That's
doesn't
fine.
matter because when he drops to the bottom,
yeah,
when you pull him, the tail, like we do with the prawns, the tail will straighten out anyway.
yeah.
And sometimes that gives it a little bit more action if they're a little bit off to the side because if you dig through all the packets and try to find one that's got 5 that are straight, you'll be there all day.
yeah,
and
so it
and
doesn't matter.
the
Yeah.
tackle shop proprietor will probably get the shits with you.
we'll get the straight ones first.
Yeah, you do.
For
Yeah,
ourselves.
yeah, yeah.
I never said anything.
Yeah. But he's got these down. Actually, you got these in the bargain bin down there, haven't you?
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
These are actually-
they don't do them anymore.
These are really good.
And they're gonna run.
The Demiki boom baits, and he's got them. They're in the wall near the
near the till.
Near the till, and they're actually reasonably well priced. I think they're
50%.
50% off. So they're $14. So they're $7. $7 for 5. So that's really good value. But like I said, like I use the gulps. Just make sure when you finish with it, you take it off and stick it back in the packet because when you go to use it next time, it goes like literally like a stick, and you got to carve it off with a knife.
So Josie, you use bigger ones too.
I go to 5-inch a lot in the Seaway. The 5-inch. I don't really go a huge amount bigger than that, except if I'm chasing Jewies and that sort of thing. But a lot of guys use the big ones. They're a fatter profile than what I usually use, and they just obviously the sink rate on them isn't as good as the little skinny ones. But the good thing about the skinny ones, you can use them with a lighter jig head than probably what you usually would use. So something like that, you probably have to use a 3/8 or that other one 3/8 with that, which you can, with the gulp you can probably get away with a quarter because they sink a little bit quicker. But and the big ones, the big sized ones.
So like Stu uses a lot of the bigger ones.
So just long stuff with light jig heads on the flats when you're fishing instead of hard bodies and that type of thing. They're quite easy to use because they don't have a lot of drag. So they're easy to use for you guys as an angler. Like if you're using a big hard body or a big paddle tail or a big whiting glide or anything like that, when you're working it, it takes a fair bit. So if you're fishing all day or fishing 3-day comps and stuff like that, after the end of the first day, you're knackered because you've been throwing this massive bit of plastic all day. Whereas something like that, when you jig it, it feels like you've got a little 3-inch curl tail on it because it just glides around, does its own thing. As Jay said, you're not moving it heaps anyway, so